It's Pastor Justin here with another snapshots from the Bible. Um, Sometimes I don't feel so profoundly deep when I share these. These are not meant to be sermons. I just should always put that out. This is just me when I read my devotions. A verse or two pops up, and I go, "Oh, that's really cool," and I want to share some of my thoughts with you on it. So sometimes I feel like I have to kind of apologize in advance that this is not s- deep academic studying of the text. This is just a reaction, a thought. So I've been going through Proverbs. I've often said I think Proverbs is probably one of the more difficult books to preach from, not because it's hard to understand, but because of the structure of, it's just a series of proverbs, a series of wise sayings, and sometimes it's really hard to figure out how would you structure that. But for certain proverbs, I think every time we read through, they leap out at us. Certain ones are more relatable at different points in our life, or just God calls them to our attention. So I was reading Proverbs 20, and two verses seem to go really well together. The first verse was verse 3, which in the ESV says, "It is an honor for a man to keep aloof from strife, but every fool will be quarreling." An honorable man, basically, an honorable man doesn't fight, but every fool will be quarreling. And it's this thought of everybody in the world has opinions, and we're so quick not only to share our opinions, but to get into fights about them. There's a saying that came from a comic strip a long time ago that a lot of us have latched onto, where somebody's wife is saying to a husband, "Come to bed," and the husband's at the computer. He's like, "I can't because somebody's wrong on the internet, and I have to correct them." This mentality of we always have to be at war with people online. We always have to be correcting their opinions. We always have to be getting in their face. And not that God is saying here that we shouldn't confront people or we shouldn't engage in discussions, but we shouldn't be picking fights. It's not our calling as Christians to be going around stirring up dissent, stirring up problems. It kind of makes us come off a little bit jerkish, if that's a technical term right there, when all we're doing is putting people down that we don't agree with, constantly looking for ways to get into fights with those we know are on some other end of our theological or political spectrum. But here, the advice is for us to keep aloof from strife, from living a life of peace, as the New Testament says. But the other verse I really liked was verse 5 here. It says, "The purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out." First of all, that is just a tremendous mental image of deep water, of things that go on not just on the surface, right? There's a lot that goes on in people on the surface. Our emotions sometimes are on the surface, or our opinions are on the surface, but the core of who we are, who you really are, what you really believe, what you really think, what you really care about, those are your deep waters. Those are the things that most people who encounter you, who are acquaintances or light friends or just people you bump into, they won't see your deep waters. They won't understand who you really are. But here, a man of understanding draws them out. And I love that because some of the people I really admire are men and women of understanding, of people who really want to get to know. When they ask you, "How are you doing?" they're not looking for an "I'm fine." They're looking for a real answer. They're looking for that depth. They're trying to figure out who you are. They want to get to know you. Um, and I like that about people. That's something I want to really aspire to be in my life, is a man of understanding, a man who doesn't just bump into people and want to have those kind of very casual surface conversations. How the weather? How's the Bills doing? Those conversations are fine to have. But at times, you want to be a person who draws out somebody's deep waters because you want to get to know who they are. You want to know what motivates them. It's key in us sharing the gospel with people. You can't share the gospel with somebody on a light surface level. I mean, it's yeah, God can use your words. God, you can ring a doorbell and talk to a complete stranger and share the gospel, and there's always that chance that God will use that. But we're called to have relationships with people, and true ministry, I believe, always happens at a relational level. That somebody's not going to be really open to you sharing with them about the gospel until they know that you've understood who they are. Paul in the New Testament talks about um, what's the phrase? He became basically, he became a man. He changed his approach to ministering to people based on who they were. He didn't change who he was, but how he dealt with people. And so, he would preach one type of sermon to one people and engage with other people in a different way. All things to all people, I think is the phrase. So Paul tried to become a man of understanding. He really wanted to draw people out in that relational ministry. It takes time, it takes effort. You think of fishing, right? If you're drawing something out of the deep waters of fishing, it doesn't. It's not instant. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of calmness, a lot of listening. That's not easy for us to do, says the guy who's just talking nonstop into a camera right now instead of listening. Let's be men and women of understanding this week. Let's really get to know those we care about, both Christians and unbelievers, so that we might understand them better, we might love them better, and we might minister to them in the name of the gospel better. Have a great week. God bless.